Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to our session on industry collaboration in the area of economic sanctions and the counter-financing of terrorism practices. Let us know what are the main challenges that you, as a responsible for operations, are today confronted with, and how do you deal with these?
We have three moving parts that are coming together like a train crash. The first would be that the demand is increasing every day. Almost every day we have the list being added with new names. The complexity and rules around and guidance that we get is unclear, but the complexity of the process is also challenging. And the third area is that the regulators, I will say, are becoming more and more zero tolerant of the mistakes that we're making. We have too many duplicating efforts going on in the industry right now, obviously. We have multiple banks scanning the same either message or transaction. It's inefficient and it's costly. Banks are applying different standards on how they view the process and what they would deem as the right process to do. How do we get together and bond and figure out how we can focus more on the true, legitimate, concernable hits than the ones we know clearly are not? I think we need more guidance from our regulators as to why some of these transactions really clearly need to be held up.
I think I should add that the SWIFT board, in response to exactly that situation that the industry is confronted with, has decided to create the Sanctions Advisory Group. This is SWIFT's response to the issue, and I think it is now up to that group to help work on solutions. Fabrice has been nominated chairman of that group.
The Sanctions Advisory Group has a dual role. First of all, it has to advise SWIFT on its strategy to build potential products in order to do more for the banking community in that area of sanctions. The second role is a typical SWIFT role also, is how can SWIFT help the industry to increase efficiency, effectiveness. SWIFT has absolutely not in mind to move the limits of responsibilities between the players. We've been contemplating different issues in different streams. The first one we have been contemplating is a screening utility for large banks. We felt that there was potential savings for banks in that area, but at the end, the discussion shows that this is not the good time, and the banking community of large banks is not ready for the time being to adhere to this opportunity. What we have decided in another stream is to focus more on the small financial entities with small volumes, and then to design a centrally hosted screening service for these institutions with low value payments. So I think it's the good time for SWIFT to move forward and to help that part of the community with the new services.
I think it's about the timing of these utilities and to what extent you want to outsource something. But there's still a kind of residual risk, and I think it's this gut feeling that maybe some compliance officers have. I have to rely on something now that I cannot control. And I think that is important, and that needs to be overcome by conversations, education, awareness, but I think most importantly to me is to be able to demonstrate what such a utility could do and cannot do. But maybe the time is right now for some more radical thoughts in this area.
This area strikes me as one that is just crying out for more coordination. The sanctions are put in place, generally speaking, as a matter of life and death. There's a real policy objective to combat terrorism through the use of these sanctions, and to do it in a very targeted manner. Institutions around the globe, again, have been subjected to fines that over the last 2 years is exceeding $2 billion. That's just the public fines themselves coming from law enforcement arena, which is another entrant beyond the banking regulatory community. I saw something incredible after 9/11, and that was a coordination of law enforcement, the banking community, and the regulatory community. there was a recognition that sharing information would lead to a better product, meaning a better understanding of what was being transmitted across the financial system, across the payment system. It's very obvious that there's a better way to take the information coming out of that and share that information so that the institutions can do a better job. This is a dialogue that is worth continuing to understand how the regulators, the banking community, and law enforcement can cooperate toward a common objective of having excellent sanctions compliance and not just spending a tremendous amount of time.
Let's now get a bit practical and talk about standards.
What we are contemplating is two things. The first thing is trying to standardize the different formats of sanctions lists. I think it would be extremely useful for the banking industry if we could achieve that. The second thing we are contemplating is how the discussion in the sanction advisory group and with SWIFT could help the banking industry to share informations, to set up common practices, and at the end increase the efficiency.
I'm very much in favor of standardization, and the benefits are quite large. And the more we can get away and get more standardization in the screening process and the names that go up there, we're all going to be now doing a better job because we're going to be spending less time on the ones we know that we exclude or try to exclude or put an inventory around exclusions, right?
Yeah.
And focusing on truly those ones we need to really chase after. Without standardization and consistency, we're doing a lot of judgment calls, and I don't think we should be doing judgment calls.
I think that a winning argument with the regulators would be one that devises an excellent solution that takes the combination of the due diligence efforts that are underway and positions that as and is a living and breathing positioning, not something that is just set and remains unchanged, but a living and breathing standardization that is contributed to on an ongoing basis by the institutions from their learning about their customers and from their AML efforts.
Number one issue everyone mentioned in the first meeting a few months ago is the quality of the lists. Because standardization, I think, is great. So if we have SWIFT or someone else working with the United Nations to get one format. But let's make sure it's not one format of the same crap. Because that's not getting us much further. Because if we now have incomplete unstructured data to then structured incomplete data, that is not, it's easier, but certainly not getting us significant further. And apologies for the language, but I think it's what it comes down, because if I only get half the information in, I'm confronted with the bad results.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for your attendance.